What made Roman emperors never worry about the future? You've been living wrong if you haven't learned this from Epictetus. In the next 3 minutes, you'll understand why Marcus chose silence over arguing. Hey guys, tonight, we sit beside the glowing oil lamps of a quiet Roman courtyard, the cobblestones still warm from the day's sun. You hear the soft wind brushing olive leaves, smell faint smoke from nearby incense, and feel the presence of ancient wisdom pressing gently against your thoughts. Somewhere nearby, a senator finishes a letter by candlelight. A soldier leans back on a column watching the stars. And you settle deeper into this silence, holding a question: why are you still shocked by people's rudeness? You may think it's normal to flinch, to feel your heart spike when someone interrupts insults or mocks you. But according to the Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, the mistake isn't theirs, it's yours. Because you expected something else, something more civilized, kinder, quieter. When you wake up each morning, Marcus wrote, say to yourself, today I shall meet with meddling, ungrateful, violent, treacherous, envious, and uncharitable men. Not to become cynical, but to stop being surprised. And you might not endure this philosophy. It's not glamorous. It doesn't promise revenge or justice or even peace from others. Only peace from within if you're willing to stop demanding that the world change to fit your comfort. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you'd like, post your location and what time it is where you are. It's always calming to see where in the world we're breathing together. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. To understand this better, let's go back to the most basic Stoic truth. People will act according to their nature, not yours. And your peace depends entirely on how ready you are to accept that. You recall a scene from Marcus Aurelius's reign. He's walking the forum surrounded by guards, greeted by nobles, petitioners, and philosophers alike. But then someone yells something crude from a passing cart. A moment of tension in the crowd. The emperor does not blink. He doesn't even pause his step. What good would come of outrage, he might have thought. He knew what kind of city he ruled. You too live among flawed people. And every time you get offended, as if it's new, you've forgotten that. Every time you stew afterward, wishing you'd said something clever or sharp, you've missed the Stoic opportunity not to dominate, but to remain unshaken. Scholars still debate whether this kind of mental preparation dulls our sensitivity or sharpens our character. But what's clear is, this Marcus Aurelius expected to meet difficult people, and by expecting them, he robbed them of their power to disturb him. So the next time someone rolls their eyes at you, interrupts you, or mocks your efforts, remember this moment, this quiet night, and the reminder that their behavior says something about them. Your reaction says something about you. You begin to see it now. This isn't about them at all. You lean back into the stillness of the room, the candle beside you swaying just slightly, casting golden shadows on the wall. You breathe in and feel the heaviness of the day begin to lift, not because it's over, but because you've stepped away from expecting anything else. That's what Marcus Aurelius learned in his years, not just as emperor, but as a man constantly surrounded by others who didn't live by the same code. He once wrote, if someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. It is the truth I seek. And that is the heart of tonight's calm, not resisting the world, but inviting correction, not fearing insult, but letting it pass through you like wind through branches. Imagine walking through a crowded Roman street. Someone brushes past you, roughly doesn't apologize. Another mutters something under their breath. You could stop, demand recognition, demand respect. Or you could keep walking grounded in the knowledge that your dignity does not live in their mouths, but in your own mind. Epictetus taught his students this very lesson. Born a slave, later a teacher of emperors, he said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about them. A passerby's insult is just sound, unless you assign it meaning. You decide whether those words become chains around your peace. And here's the secret: most of the people who act rudely aren't thinking of you at all. They are sleepwalking through their own anxieties, fears, frustrations. Like children unaware of their own volume, they speak and stumble not to hurt, but because they don't know better. If you remember that, truly remember it, you feel a strange calm wash over you, not forgiveness in the name of nobility, but simply in the name of sanity. There's an old story about a Roman merchant who, after being insulted in the marketplace, simply smiled and said, "If I am what you say I am, I must fix it. If I'm not, then your insult is nothing." What an armor that is, not of steel, but of self-possession. And you might wonder, if I never defend myself, do I become weak? But think about this. Is it weaker to need every person's approval or to walk peacefully without it? Is it stronger to win arguments or to have no need for them? Scholars still argue over whether Stoicism encourages emotional suppression. But the wiser view is this: it encourages emotional understanding. It teaches you to notice the rise of anger without obeying it, to feel the sting of offense without letting it become a wound. So tonight, you train for tomorrow's chaos, not by imagining perfect people, but by releasing your need for them. The world will still contain the loud, the cruel, the careless, but you no longer hand them your peace like a coin to be stolen. Instead, you rest here, in this moment, in the company of thinkers who learned over lifetimes that the only thing you ever really control is how you respond. And that quietly is enough. You wake early not because you must, but because something deeper calls you a quiet readiness. There's no alarm, no flurry of alerts or noise. Just you, the soft blue of dawn, and the rustle of old thoughts returning like loyal messengers. Marcus Aurelius rose each morning and reminded himself, "Today I will meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." Not out of pessimism, but preparation. You can feel the difference. He wasn't defeated by the thought, he was steadied by it. Because when you expect the weather to change, you pack the right cloak. So you reflect who in your day will likely interrupt your peace. The sharp colleague, the sarcastic stranger, the impatient voice behind a steering wheel. You already know them. They will appear as surely as the sun, and like the sun, they don't ask permission. And yet you also know yourself. Your dignity, unlike theirs, isn't made of wax. It doesn't melt under heat. It's something you've tended quietly, like a small lamp in your chest. Each time you choose not to lash out, not to defend every bruise to your ego, that flame grows steadier. Seneca once warned, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Even now you feel how true that is. How many things said or done in frustration have withered simply because you gave them no air? Sometimes the most stoic move isn't bold silence, but patient breathing. There's a question the Stoics love to ask: is this thing in my control? And in a room of emotions, others shouting, blaming, provoking, the only controllable element is your choice not to participate, not to take the bait, not to become the very storm you wanted to weather. A Roman general once knelt at the edge of a battlefield watching his enemies hurl insults from afar. His soldiers urged retaliation. He smiled and said, "They do not know me. Why should I honor their ignorance with anger?" And with that, he rode away, not weaker but stronger, for leaving his enemy confused by calm. So tomorrow, when the harsh words come, and they will remember you already trained for them, not with swords or clever replies, but with a gentler weapon, the ability to see them clearly and remain unmoved. You don't have to prove anything. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. The world will misunderstand you 100 times before noon, but peace is not found in their praise or their silence. It is found here in your breath, in your posture, in your choice. Let others perform their dramas. Let them raise their voices and seek reactions. You, like Marcus, choose to walk past them, not as a coward, but as a philosopher who sees that not all battles are worth the bruises. And already, even now, you feel it. That stillness that says, I do not need them to behave well for me to remain well. You step outside into the pale morning, feeling the weight of the world still sleeping behind closed shutters and cold stone walls. The city, or maybe just your mind, hasn't woken fully yet. This is the hour Marcus Aurelius often walked alone before the Senate called, before judgments and orders, before complaints filled the corridors of power. He called it clearing the fog, a deliberate moment of solitude, not to run from people, but to prepare for them. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. You breathe that in now. Just being here with breath is enough. You walk slowly. The cobblestones beneath your feet remind you that the world is hard, but it holds you. The air holds no answers, but it doesn't demand any either. You've realized lately that most discomfort with rude people isn't what they say, it's your surprise that they dared say it. Epictetus asked, would you be angry with someone for coughing? Then why be angry with them for being rude when rudeness is their condition? That comparison might sound strange at first, rudeness as a kind of illness, but it lands. You wouldn't shout at someone for sneezing. You wouldn't hate a fever. So why do we give others so much power when they behave poorly? Why do their tantrums become ours? It helps to reframe them. That impatient barista, a person in their own storm. The rude passenger, a life of stories you'll never fully know. And even if they aimed their malice at you like a dart, Marcus reminds you, choose not to be harmed and you won't be. Not because you're made of stone, but because your peace isn't up for auction. There's a stillness you begin to cultivate, not because everyone else behaves, but because you refuse to mirror them. And that's where your real freedom lies. Because if your emotions rise and fall with every offense, then the world owns you. But if you hold the line, just breathe, just observe, just stand firm, then you become the calm in the chaos. And others eventually will feel it too. They'll sense there is something unshakable in you. Not a wall, not a fight, just quiet control. You glance at a vendor setting up in the distance. His gestures are curt, not cruel. You imagine he's had long mornings like yours. Maybe longer. And you nod not out of obligation, but because you see it now. We are all fighting invisible battles, and no one wins when we throw more fire. Let rudeness pass through you like wind through an open window. Let the noise play out like a passing storm. You are the roof, not the rain. And as you walk forward one step at a time, you begin to smile, not because the world is kind, but because you no longer require it to be. Later that morning, you find yourself seated at a small wooden table, simple, stable, a surface made for reflection, not display. There's a chipped ceramic cup beside you, still warm with the last sips of tea. You watch the way light pools across the tabletop, golden and slow, like it's reminding you not to rush. You're thinking now about insults, not the loud, cartoonish kind, the subtle ones, the looks that linger a beat too long, the mockery cloaked as humor, the conversations where your presence is tolerated, not welcomed. You've felt these before, haven't we all? And each time there's a part of you that flinches even when you pretend not to. But the Stoics had a strange advice. Don't respond with offense. Respond with curiosity. Epictetus once asked his students, "If someone tells you that you are a fool, must you be upset? Consider, are you a fool? If not, then why be angry? If so, then their words are true, and still, why be angry?" That logic is disarming. It cuts the emotional fuse before it lights. Because the truth is, most insults are either false or redundant. And if you've already done the inner work of knowing yourself, then no one's words can add or subtract from your worth. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And he was right. It's not just the insult that hurts. It's the endless replay, the defensive fantasies, the revenge scenarios we construct in silence. We feed the fire, then blame the match. You tap the table softly, a small sound grounding. You're here, not in your head. And that matters. Marcus Aurelius practiced this too. As emperor, he was the target of countless rumors and slander, some political, some personal. He didn't write long rebuttals. He didn't stage grand defenses. He wrote instead, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." What kind of strength does it take to live like that? Scholars still debate whether Stoicism means cold indifference or elevated control. But you can feel the difference now. This isn't about being numb, it's about being selective. It's about preserving your inner peace the way you'd protect a flame from a gust. So the next time someone offends you, pause. Not to plot your response, but to ask, do I need to carry this? Will responding make me better or just louder? There is a silence more powerful than any argument. And when you sit in that silence, unmoved, unprovoked, you discover the true extent of your power. Not to win, but to remain unchanged. Let them talk. Let the noise rise. You sip your tea quietly. You are the mountain, and their words are just wind. The wind outside begins to rise just slightly, brushing against the wooden shutters of the room. You shift your weight, letting the sound wash over you like a distant echo. It reminds you how everything in life, criticism, praise, judgment, is just passing wind. And none of it has to reach your core unless you open the window and let it in. You recall that line from Epictetus, often repeated, but rarely mastered. It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about them. That small sentence holds an entire philosophy inside it, because it means that the insult itself is never the problem. It's your attachment to it, your interpretation of it, your readiness to receive it as truth. Imagine for a moment a Roman forum. Crowds, gathered voices, loud tempers high. A man speaks ill of you in front of others, deliberately, confidently. People watch for your reaction, and you, with a calm face, say nothing. Or perhaps you nod as if they merely reminded you of something trivial you'd long ago accepted. That's the posture of a Stoic. Not weakness, not apathy, but mastery of your own emotional sovereignty. You remember Marcus Aurelius again. He once wrote to himself, "When someone does you wrong, you must understand what they believed was right." This is not permission for bad behavior. It's a doorway to empathy. If someone is rude to you, perhaps they are ruled by fear, envy, or misunderstanding. But their internal struggle is not your burden to carry. And yet, you do feel it sometimes, don't you? The sting, the need to correct them, to defend yourself, that small burning desire to be seen as right. But then you realize that too is ego. Wanting to be seen, heard, respected. It's natural. But it's not peace. Peace lives in the space where you release that craving. Scholars often debate whether Stoicism teaches avoidance, but what you notice instead is something subtler. Stoicism teaches redirection. You don't deny the moment. You face it but choose a different meaning. You remind yourself, I am not made worse by this unless I choose to be. So now when someone criticizes you, you try a new approach. You don't just hear the words, they float in the air like leaves on a pond. You don't jump in. You just observe them drift. And you might even smile quietly, not out of mockery, but out of understanding. Because now you see clearly their outburst is about them, not you. Their frustration, their tone, their attack, it's a mirror of their inner world, not yours. And when you stop reacting, when you refuse to mirror their chaos, something powerful happens. You rise. Not above them, but above the situation. You become untouched like still water that no stone can disturb for long. You take a deep breath. The air smells faintly of old wood and worn scrolls. You sit quietly watching your thoughts drift by, and for once you don't follow them. The room is quiet again, and you hear only the soft flutter of the candlelight and your own breath slow and steady. In this stillness, you recall something else Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." A short line, but one that stirs a deep shift inside you. Because when someone wrongs you, your instinct may still whisper, "Fight back." Prove them wrong. Make them feel the discomfort they gave you. But the Stoics challenge you to ask, what does that make you? If someone throws mud at you and you throw it back now, you're both dirty. But if you stand still and brush it off with calm hands, who really wins? You let that question settle for a moment as you imagine Marcus himself seated under a colonnade at dusk. He's dressed simply scribbling thoughts into a small wax tablet. A servant enters delivering bad news. Someone in the Senate has slandered him. Without looking up, Marcus responds, "Then it is good. I know who I must forgive." No rush of anger. No panic, just perspective. You're reminded here that calm is not passivity, it is power. It is control not over others, but over yourself. In a world constantly asking for a reaction, stillness becomes your rebellion. Your clarity becomes your shield. Still, it's not easy. The modern world, just like the ancient, thrives on provocation. Social media gossip, public forums all offer the perfect stage for performance anger. Outrage is a currency. But a Stoic doesn't invest in that economy. A Stoic chooses silence not because they have nothing to say, but because not everything deserves a response. Epictetus once advised, "If you are ever tempted to respond to an insult, remember that being insulted is not an action, it's a choice." You think of all the times you've replayed someone's words in your mind like a bad song you couldn't stop humming. All that energy wasted. Now you imagine that same moment again, someone rude, loud, unfair. But this time you don't carry their words home. You don't build them a seat at your table. You let them go at the door like removing dusty sandals. They don't belong in your peace. There's a phrase Seneca used in his letters, "A wise man is safe from insult." Not because the world is kind, but because his self-worth is unshakable. Your worth isn't rented from public opinion. It doesn't rise and fall with approval. And the less you need validation, the freer you become. So next time someone raises their voice or sneers or scoffs, you don't need to fix it. You don't need to fix them. You just return to yourself. Steady, silent, sovereign. The candle burns lower now. You don't move to adjust it. There is enough light. There is always enough light when you are not trying to prove yourself. You lean back, the cool surface of the stone wall pressing gently against your spine. In this pause, you recall how Marcus Aurelius handled betrayal, not with loud confrontation, but with restraint so profound it startled even his enemies. One of his generals once disobeyed a direct order, nearly compromising the empire's northern defenses. The court expected punishment. But Marcus simply removed the man from command and offered no public shaming, no theatrical condemnation. When asked why, Marcus replied, "He has already punished himself by forgetting who he is." That line echoes now in your mind, forgetting who he is. As if every rude act, every insult, every moment of cruelty is a person's brief amnesia, a forgetting of their better self, and that forgetting, not the insult itself, is the real tragedy. You begin to see it more clearly. Rudeness, meanness, loudness, they're symptoms, not weapons. They signal pain, fear, confusion, ego. And while that doesn't excuse behavior, it explains it. You don't need to become their doctor. You just need not become their reflection. Epictetus warned his students, when someone irritates you, it is your own response that disturbs you. And that teaching carries into your daily life like a quiet lantern. Someone cuts you off in traffic. A coworker dismisses your idea. A stranger snaps at you in line. But instead of feeling pierced, you start to feel distance. Not emotional coldness, emotional clarity. You learn to separate the event from your identity. Their mood is not your mirror. Their words are not your truth. You think of an old Roman street, now the kind Marcus might have walked, lined with clay shops and sun-warmed walls. A heckler jeers from a shaded doorway. The emperor doesn't pause. His sandals continue forward, crunching gently over gravel. He's not being passive, he's practicing dignity. And that word settles into you now, dignity. Not pride, not smugness, but dignity, the quiet armor of someone who knows who they are and doesn't hand that identity over for approval or defense. Seneca once said, "No man can insult me. I cannot be insulted." At first that seems bold, but it's not bravado, it's a principle. He's saying, I've removed the hook. You may cast the bait, but I do not bite. You reflect on how often in life you've reached for those hooks, taking offense, rising to bait, defending yourself over things that didn't need defense, and how much peace you lost in the process. But here, with the flickering candle and the memory of Roman Stoics echoing like soft footsteps behind you, you decide something: you won't play that game anymore. You will not try to win arguments that don't need fighting. You will not explain yourself to those not listening. You will not rage at shadows. Instead, you'll do what Marcus did, what Seneca urged, what Epictetus taught. You'll return to your breath. You'll walk on, and in doing so, you'll quietly reclaim the most powerful thing of all, yourself. The room is still. Outside, the wind brushes against the old shutters, a gentle rustling like robes brushing marble. You imagine it's Rome again. Not the chaotic, crowded Rome of spectacle, but the quieter one, the one in between the noise. The Rome Marcus preferred. The Rome of early mornings and long silences. The Rome where virtue, not applause, was the highest aim. You close your eyes and bring to mind a moment of public shame. Maybe someone called you out unfairly, or you made a mistake in front of a crowd. You remember the heat rising to your cheeks, the flood of embarrassment, the urge to explain or vanish or lash out. But what if you had done what Marcus did? When accused unfairly by political enemies, Marcus often remained silent, not because he lacked a defense, but because he believed his life was the defense. He wrote in his journal, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them, and it is in your power to wipe that out now." You repeat those last words quietly. It is in your power to wipe that out now. This is a power most people forget they have. The power to reframe, to pause, to refuse escalation. Not weakness command. To look at an insult and see it as you might see a dog barking through a gate. Loud but irrelevant. You imagine yourself standing in that moment again, under the gaze of others, words thrown at you like stones. But instead of flinching, instead of reacting, you feel grounded. You observe the moment as if from a distance. You feel the surge of emotion rise and then pass. Like Epictetus described, when you are insulted, you must know what it means. Begin by not being irritated, for that is not up to others. You are not a puppet pulled by reactions. You are the quiet center. There is strength in letting the wave hit without being dragged. There is a strange dignity in not needing others to agree with you. There is peace in knowing your value isn't up for vote. You think of a Roman amphitheater now. The crowd roars, but the philosopher seated alone beneath the shade of a column does not rise to defend his name. He studies the sky instead. He breathes. He writes in his scroll, his face calm. And you realize in a world of noise, he is the loudest thing there. Not by voice, but by stillness. This is what it means to hold your ground without drawing your sword. So the next time rudeness finds you, and it will, you will not be surprised. You will not be shaken. You will feel the first sting of judgment, but you won't let it grow teeth. You will say nothing, or perhaps something so soft it diffuses the flame. That's one way to see it. And then you'll continue walking. Not because you're above them, but because you are finally free from needing to be beneath them. You shift your weight slightly. The mat beneath you creaks. Another breath in, and you return to the image not just of a single insult, but of the people behind them. Rude people. Unkind people. Those whose words cut not from wisdom, but from their own unresolved wounds. It's easy to say, don't take it personally. But Marcus Aurelius went further than that. He urged compassion, not just detachment. When you wake in the morning, he wrote, tell yourself today, I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil. He prepared for these encounters not with dread, but with grace. Because he understood what most forget rude people are often the most lost. And if you let them poison your peace, you are simply handing them what little calm you had left. The Stoics were not naive. They didn't pretend that cruelty didn't exist, but they refused to mirror it. You remember a moment, a recent one. Perhaps someone raised their voice in traffic, or cut you off in line, or made a sly comment in front of others. Your instinct was heat-quickness response. But if you had paused, really paused, you might have seen it. Their anger wasn't about you. Their impatience, their snide remark, it wasn't born in this moment. It was a continuation of something long brewing in them. You were simply the next available target. So you remind yourself you're not here to win every interaction. You're not here to teach everyone a lesson. Sometimes the greatest strength is found in not needing to win, in walking away and letting silence speak for you. Seneca once said, "It is the sign of a great mind to disdain being affected by insults. Not ignore, not suppress, but disdain, as in to find them beneath your concern. Not because you're better, but because you're choosing better." You picture Seneca seated by a fire late at night, hearing the distant sounds of court intrigue and rumor. He doesn't rise. He doesn't write a rebuttal. He adds another log to the fire and continues writing his thoughts on virtue. He knows who he is. You do too. There's a kind of moral elegance in this posture. You are not cold, but you are calm. You are not fragile, but you are deliberate. You choose when and how to speak, not because you are silenced, but because you are centered. This is your power now. When someone wrongs you with words, you don't flinch. You observe. You breathe. You remember Marcus's words again. They are ignorant of good and evil, and then you let the comment drift away like smoke. You are no longer in the arena throwing back insults. You are seated in the colonnade, watching with quiet eyes, learning more about yourself than about them. The bad behavior of others is a test not of their character, but of yours. And with every encounter, you get to decide who you are. The sound of footsteps on a marble street, a market square, voices calling out to one another in Latin. You imagine yourself there, ancient Rome, early morning, and amid it all, a man being mocked. Not a criminal, not a clown, just a thinker, perhaps a Stoic walking too slowly, or maybe a philosopher who refused to flatter a politician. The laughter rises, but he does not respond. This wasn't just a story. This was a daily test the Stoics faced. To be misunderstood, to be ridiculed, and still to remain unmoved. You sit with that idea. What would it take to remain untouched? Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. It's not the insult, it's your invitation to take it inside, to hold it, to water it like a seed until it grows into resentment. But what if you didn't? What if you let it pass? Modern life offers so many opportunities to be offended. A comment section, a text that feels cold, a co-worker's tone. Sometimes you don't even need real offense, just a story in your head that fills in the blanks. They must have meant that. They must be judging you. And then you're caught. The Stoic teaches you to pause before entering the trap. Because that's all it takes, just a moment, a beat, a breath that separates you from the reflex. You remember Marcus Aurelius again. He was once confronted by a senator who spoke harshly against his decisions. He listened, quietly. And when the man finished, Marcus thanked him genuinely, not sarcastically, because he believed that every criticism, no matter how poorly delivered, might still contain something useful. And if it didn't, then it deserved no more weight than a leaf falling on water. That's not weakness. That's supremacy of the soul. You ask yourself, why does it sting when someone speaks down to you? Is it their words or your need for approval? You don't control the noise around you, but you do control your filter. And if you learn to sift words through the lens of Stoic calm, very little can ever pierce you again. You aren't made of glass. You're made of reason. You imagine this strength not as armor but as clarity. Not cold indifference but warm confidence. The kind that smiles without needing to speak. The kind that walks away without needing to prove a point. Criticism will always exist. Rudeness will always echo in some corner of the world. But you are no longer echoing back. You've become still water, and nothing disturbs still water for long. A breeze passes through an olive grove just outside the city walls. You walk quietly, letting your fingers trail along the worn bark of the trees. Rome is still close, but here the noise fades, and so do your thoughts. You think of that last encounter. Someone raised their voice at you, not once, but 3 times. Maybe they did it in front of others. Maybe they stared, waiting for your retaliation. And maybe for the first time you didn't give them what they expected. You didn't flinch. You didn't explain. You didn't mirror their tone. You just let them speak. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And this, you begin to realize, is one of the quietest victories a person can achieve. The urge to strike back is primal. It's ancient. But the ability to observe, to not identify with the heat of the moment, that is rare. That is trained. That is philosophical. You recall a scene from Seneca's life. A guest once insulted his modest home, mocked the food, the walls, even the servants' attire. Seneca calmly continued the conversation, never acknowledging the barbs. Later he wrote, "An insult is only sharp if it strikes flesh. In other words, you have to let the dagger in, or it remains just a gesture. You sit with that. Because it's not about being numb. It's not about being above others. It's about understanding the transaction of offense. Someone offers you a package. You can take it, unwrap it, carry it around. Or you can leave it on the table and walk away lighter. This principle isn't easy, especially when the person delivering the rudeness is someone close, a sibling, a partner, a parent. Their words cut deeper not because they're sharper, but because you opened your heart to them. Still, the practice remains. The Stoics believed that your inner fortress, your mind, must remain undisturbed no matter who is at the gate. Scholars debate whether Stoicism encourages emotional coldness, but that's a misunderstanding. The Stoic is not cold. The Stoic is composed. Not unfeeling, but unbroken. Their emotions are real, but governed, not governing. You consider what would happen if the next time someone slighted you, you responded with stillness, with silence. Not as a power play, but as an honest choice. This does not deserve my peace. Wouldn't that feel like freedom? You look up. The leaves overhead tremble in the wind, but the trunks stand tall. You feel that parallel in your spine, rooted, aware, unshaken. You've begun to grasp that the real battle is not against rudeness. It's against your own reactivity. And every moment of irritation is a chance to practice peace. You start to crave this kind of control, not over others, but over yourself. You no longer want to win arguments. You want to win your serenity. And in that goal, there is no enemy. Only you. And your choice. You return home as twilight deepens. The city is quieter now. You pass neighbors, strangers, shopkeepers closing for the night. Some offer a smile, some don't. And you're okay with that. Earlier it might have bothered you. A cold glance, an impatient tone. But now you begin to realize most people are not rude to you, they are rude around you. It's not personal. It rarely is. Epictetus taught this: when someone provokes you, remember that it is your own opinion that provokes you. In other words, it's not the words themselves, it's what you believe those words mean about you. You pause on that. Because deep down, every insult or dismissal only hurts if it touches a fear you already carry. That you're not enough. That you're invisible. That you're weak. But what if you didn't carry that fear? What if you saw rudeness not as a reflection of yourself, but of the other person's inner struggle? You imagine a Roman street cleaner in the early morning. Someone bumps into him without apology. He could scowl, shout, raise a fist, but instead he shrugs, keeps sweeping, because he understands not all messes are his to clean. You take that image with you. You think of Marcus again walking through the imperial palace surrounded by flatterers, critics, whisperers, people who wanted his favor, people who wanted to see him fall. Yet still he wrote in his journal not about vengeance, but about perspective. You always own the option of having no opinion. It sounds strange at first. Doesn't having no opinion mean you don't care? But maybe it means you care more about your own peace than about proving something to someone else. You step into your room and light a candle. Shadows stretch along the walls. The soft crackle reminds you of campfires of long-forgotten nights, where the only voices were honest ones. You sit by the flame not to react, but to reflect. In the glow, you recall a childhood moment. Maybe someone embarrassed you in front of others. Maybe a teacher, a classmate. Back then, you didn't have the tools to step back. But now you do. Because awareness is a skill, and the more you build it, the less you're pulled into performances that drain you. You let others play their roles. You play yours, calm, centered, self-commanding. Scholars often question, can Stoicism make a society cold and unresponsive? Or does it make it more peaceful, less reactive? The answer might be both. But you've seen the alternative. You've lived in reactivity, and you know which world feels heavier. Now you choose the lighter one. You feel it each time you pause instead of reply. Each time you let a rude word dissolve before it touches you, like snowflakes landing on fire. And tonight, as the fire flickers low, you decide not every spark deserves your flame. The candle dances gently beside you. Outside, the streets breathe with silence. You've begun to notice the difference between noise and motion, between urgency and aliveness. And perhaps this is the greatest shift. Stoicism offers a sense that calm is not the absence of difficulty, but a conscious choice made in its presence. You lean back against the wall. Your spine touches cool stone, and for a moment you imagine yourself in a Roman villa just as Marcus might have been. Surrounded by scrolls, oil lamps, the scent of wax and ink. A servant rushes into the chamber, flushed with panic. The people are shouting at the gates, he says. They blame you for the taxes. Some even curse your name. Marcus doesn't flinch. He doesn't order a guard. He doesn't even rise. He calmly closes his scroll and looks out the window. They are mistaken, he says. That is all. You return to yourself. The modern world doesn't bring shouts at the gate, but it brings something just as loud: comment sections. Office rumors. Misunderstood glances. Cold shoulders. Sometimes the harshest voices come from people you trusted. You ask yourself, what would Marcos say? And you remember, if anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after. It isn't about proving yourself. It's about being humble enough to grow and wise enough not to waste time defending what doesn't need defending. You picture yourself tomorrow, maybe walking into work or logging into that group chat or seeing someone who once made you feel small. And instead of feeling dread, you feel stillness. Because what they say, what they think, those are externals. What's up to you is your character, your response, your clarity. And you've built that clarity one moment at a time. There's a Stoic debate that lingers: should one always remain silent when wronged? Or are there times when speech is itself a duty? Seneca once warned, a good man will not waste time on outrage. But he also added that silence must come from wisdom, not fear. So you weigh your choice. Sometimes you'll speak not to defend yourself, but to set the record straight with dignity. And sometimes you'll remain silent, not because you're weak, but because your peace is worth more than being understood. This discernment, this self-trust, is what changes you. You shift your weight on the floor, listening to your own breath. How many times have you let others dictate your mood? How many times have you mistaken noise for importance, but now you see the truth? The calmer you are, the more power you have, not over them, but over yourself. It's not easy. But neither was standing in front of a Roman mob. Neither was being emperor and choosing mercy. Neither was being human and choosing virtue in a world that prized domination. Still, Marcus chose calm. Epictetus chose discipline. Seneca chose reflection. And now, so do you. The candlelight flickers low, its tiny flame a final whisper of warmth. Your breath is quiet, now steady and slow. You feel your body soften with each exhale, as if even your muscles have learned the lesson Marcus Aurelius whispered across centuries. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. You think back to your day, the sharp words, the subtle slights, the unexpected jabs of someone's tone. And yet, here you are, whole, intact, unshaken. The Stoics didn't promise a world without rudeness. They promised a way to walk through that world with grace. In one of his journals, Marcus reminded himself, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But I have seen the beauty of good, and I will not be harmed." You reflect on that. Not harmed. Because your dignity isn't theirs to give or take. Your clarity doesn't come from their approval. Your peace isn't some fragile glass that shatters with a glance. It's a fire built deep within, fed by reflection, restraint, and resolve. That's what Stoicism gives you, not immunity from life's difficulties, but internal armor that doesn't weigh you down. You think of Marcus again, this time alone in his tent during the Marcomannic Wars. Rain against the canvas, soldiers murmuring outside. And yet he writes not about enemies or logistics, but about the soul. He writes of the logos of reason, of how to remain kind even when the world isn't. Scholars still wonder, how did an emperor remain so gentle, so introspective, when every day could have made him cruel? The answer is not found in what happened to him, but in what he returned to every night, those pages, those thoughts, those reminders of who he chose to be. And now in your own quiet, you feel the same return. Not to scrolls, perhaps, but to your breath, to the stillness behind your ribs, to the strength of not reacting, because that's the final practice, the most overlooked and powerful of them all, returning. Returning to your values when tested, returning to silence when provoked, returning to breath when flustered, returning to wisdom when lost. The world will continue. People will forget their manners. Voices will rise. But you will keep returning. And one day, someone will wonder how you stay so calm, why their rudeness never stirs you, why you always seem like you've already seen the storm and chosen not to step into it. And you'll smile. Not out of pride, but out of quiet understanding. Because you know what truly matters and what doesn't. Because you've practiced the ancient art of serenity. And because tonight, you remembered that nothing anyone says can touch the part of you that has chosen peace. So now, as you lie back and let your breath slow even more, imagine the world falling a little quieter. The noise softens not because it's gone, but because you've learned to hear it differently, like waves rolling past the shore, distant and harmless. You're no longer tangled in other people's opinions. You're no longer a puppet of impulse. You've stepped away from that. You've chosen a simpler path. Let the world be loud. Let others race, argue, provoke. You've tasted something deeper, what the Stoics lived for. A state of being where calm is strength, restraint is freedom, and presence is power. And tomorrow, you'll wake up with the same choices before you. Will you react or respond? Will you match chaos with more chaos, or will you pause and return? For now, though, let go of all that. Feel your breath as it carries you downward into softness, into stillness. There is nothing left to do. Nothing to prove, only to rest in the knowledge that your peace is yours alone. And that is something no one, not even the rudest voice, can ever take from you.